Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Coffee Chat with Matt. I am here on a beautiful sunny and finally warmer morning. We're having some great weather and I hope you're getting a chance to get out and work in the yard. The last couple of weeks and weekends have been lovely. We've had no frost and it's really planting time. The garden is starting to really come into its own. Lots of stuff blooming in my own yard and I love walking around the yard you know, either at night when I get home from work or early in the morning before I leave for work, see what's blooming in the yard and just really love this time of year. Got a good talk for you today, I hope. This is something that I get questions about a lot, or maybe not even questions, but a lot of times when I'm talking with customers or prospective clients and they've got a shady location in their yard somewhere and I recommend a hosta, I get the, oh, no hostas. I'm tired of them, or you know, my grandma had them and they're just really commonplace, kind of boring, whatever. So I get some iteration of that from people on a regular basis. And so this has been a talk that I've been wanting to do for a while. I've titled it, Not Your Grandma's Hosta. Because honestly, there really are a handful of varieties that have been around for a long time that have been divided and passed down or transplanted and given away. And some of these folks just have, you know, hundreds. I mean, I've been to properties that have 100 plus, 200 plus of the same variety of hosta. And it just, you know, borders the woods, or they have it all around every single tree in the yard, the exact same hosta all around. And there are some very boring old varieties. However, there are some really fantastic newer varieties. I say newer because some of these varieties are actually 20 or 30 years old. Some of them are much less, much younger than that. But there's some really great varieties, and hostas are a very durable plant that will grow where not a lot else will grow. They are exceptionally tolerant of dry shade. They will grow well in and amongst the roots of other trees and do very well in those tough places where you can't get anything else to grow. And if you're looking for some color and some interest, boy, do we have the plant for you. So I'm gonna run through some of my favorites. There are literally more than 3,000 different hostas, different hosta cultivars in the world, in production, whatever you want to call it, in cultivation, I guess. So more than 3,000 varieties. Hostas are not native to North America. They're an Asian plant, Japan, Korea, China. They were brought to Europe hundreds of years ago and then brought to the US in the 1800s. They've been cultivating hostas in the US for almost 200 years now. And as I mentioned, some of the older varieties are still around, but there's some great new introductions. So we're just going to start in here. Before I start talking about individual varieties, one of the common complaints or problems that I get about hostas are deer and rabbits, and they can be a problem, especially early in the spring when they're first coming out of the ground. Once the plants are up and more robust, rarely do I see deer or rabbit problems on hosta. But when they're first peeking out of the ground and they kind of look like almost like a little asparagus, there's little spears coming out of the ground, oftentimes the rabbits will nibble that. Deer will definitely nibble that. This is a great product. It's called Plant Skid. It is an all-natural deer and rabbit repellent. It works exceptionally well. It is much more rain-proof than most of the other deer and rabbit repellents on the market. Lasts for about 30 to 60 days. I love to spray this on those little fresh sprouts as they're first emerging out of the ground. Reason being, if you can train a rabbit or a deer that your yard or your hosta garden or whatever it is, if you can train them that it doesn't taste very good, they will go somewhere else. Deer and rabbits and many other animals sort of have almost a GPS built into their brain that they know where the good food is and they keep coming back. As long as there's something good for them to eat, they keep coming back. So if you can train them early on, my yard doesn't taste good, then they go find somewhere else and then they stick to that and they avoid your yard. So Plant Skid is the way to go. You can use this on full-grown plants, you know, small shrubs, perennials, anything like that that the deer and rabbits are bothering. You can spray this directly on the plant. Just one word of caution, especially on some of your lighter leafed plants. This is a dark, kind of brownish reddish liquid. It will cause a little bit of spotting and staining on the foliage if you spray it on there. It will eventually go away, but it does work really well. So, all right, let's jump in here in no particular order, but I will start with some of our minis, because they're great for the small rock garden type areas. So hostas, normally when we think about them, they are many of them are quite large, but there are a bunch of great dwarf or mini hostas on the market. This one here is Sun Mouse, this one is Mighty Mouse, and this one is Blue Mouse here. So I brought 3 minis up here. Each of these is going to get about the same size. They're going to be approximately 6 to 8 inches tall and about 8 to maybe 12 inches wide. So very small plants. Everything about them is dwarf. The leaves are dwarf, their size and stems are dwarf, the flowers are dwarf. I love to use these in a shady location next to a patio, next to a sidewalk, little kind of front of the garden bed border type plant. They work really well with that. They also work great in like a shady rock garden, or if you have a water feature, pond, waterfall, something like that. These are going to be great amongst the cracks and crevices. You got a couple of boulders. You could kind of wedge that in there and just let it go. It's going to look really nice. They're really durable little plants. They've got nice, stout little stems. Wonderful plants. These, of course, as I mentioned, hostas are going to love the shade. One question that I do get asked about hostas on a fairly regular basis is which hostas are best for sun. And I will mention a couple of them today that are a little more sun tolerant. But honestly, hostas don't love the sun. If you've got a full sun location, if you've got a spot that gets sun from morning till night, or is high, dry, on a berm, sun beating down on it, intense sunlight type situations, a hosta is not the best plant for that location. While some of them may tolerate it more than others, you're much better off finding a plant that's tolerant of that hot, dry, sunny location than a hosta. So, but I will mention a few that are a little more sun tolerant. So if you've got that spot that gets the shade most of the day, but then you have a couple hours of intense sunlight, there aren't a lot of plants that can tolerate that. And some hostas will tolerate that really quite well. So we'll talk about a few of those. So I'll move our little minis out of the way and we'll keep going here. This is another much, pretty small statured hosta with, as you can tell, very narrow, finely textured foliage. So this is called curly fries. It is as I mentioned, kind of a medium-sized hosta, about 6 to 8 inches tall and about 12 to 18 inches wide. The leaves are very ruffled or sort of almost corrugated along the edge. Very pretty plant. The stems will get just a hint of purpley red to them with this very nice yellowy green foliage. It's a really nice little diminutive hosta. This is going to be a great accent plant with much larger leafed hostas or other larger leaf plants. So I love to add the texture of curly fries into the garden. It will have a lavender colored flower in the mid-summertime. So one of the things about hostas that is a little bit unique, there are other plants like this as well, but Hosta flowers are on what is known as a scape. And I'm going to kind of show you this one here. It was the only one that I had that was actually blooming right now. But you can kind of see this flower stalk right here. And a scape is a leafless flower stalk that comes directly from the root system. So this shoots up. Other plants that have it would be something like a daylily, irises, things like that. But you can see this does not come off of a leaf or a branch. So that's what we would call a scape. These are going to form little trumpet-shaped flowers out here that will, in this case, this one's going to open up relatively soon. Hostas are always going to be basically white, purple, lavender. None of them are really bright, intense colors, but some of them are quite nice, and they are a good plant for some of our pollinators. The bumblebees really like the flowers on hosta, and so do hummingbirds. So while it's not a native plant in our area, it is definitely something that pollinators will benefit from, and it is something that will not escape cultivation. Hostas, you're never going to find hostas going rogue and taking over a woodland or something like that. They stay in place, they divide really well, they transplant really well, so they're a great plant for the garden. So while we're talking about this particular one, I will fill you in on it. It is a newer variety. This comes from the Shadowland collection at Proven Winners. This one is called Voices in the Wind. It is a medium-sized hosta. It's going to get about 17, 18 inches tall, but can get about 36 to 40 inches wide. So this can get really wide. You want to give this one a lot of space, but I like this one for a couple of reasons. It has basically a three-tone leaf, so you get the really sort of nice yellow margin, which of course, as you can tell, has that really nice undulation to it. Just inside that, you're going to get a lighter green, almost a kind of an avocado green, and then you get a darker green in the center. I probably could have like polished these leaves up or something. There's a little dust and dirt on here, but you can kind of see that pattern there. So it's going to it's a nice large hosta in terms of its width. It's going to take up a lot of space, and that texture is really cool. But because it's got such a unique variegation to it, sometimes you're going to get leaves like this, which just have a completely different variegation pattern to them. So this one, of course, still has the creamy margins, but you can see it's got that cream really defined through the center there. And this one is almost what we would call a half moon leaf, where half of it is variegated with that yellow and the other side is not. So very cool hosta if you're looking for some unique texture. And then the little lavender flowers on there are going to be really nice come summertime. This next one that I have here is another smaller hosta, not a mini, but not a regular size. It's called Rainforest Sunrise. This is going to get about 12 inches tall, but about 16 inches wide. It has these really cool cupped leaves. The leaves are much smaller than Voices in the Wind, the hosta I just showed you, but I'll kind of spin this around. You can see that the way that leaf just kind of cups like that. So I really like this one, again, for more of the foreground. It's going to look great with your much larger leafed hostas. I have areas at home where I have hostas all mixed in different areas, and we've got some taller ones and some shorter ones, and some that are blue and some that are yellow and some that are variegated. I love the way that the textures and colors blend together. And again, it's a much neater, I think more aesthetically pleasing look than just that long border of a plain old, like slightly variegated hosta. We'll talk about that in a little bit. All right, I mentioned blue hostas. This is actually one of my favorite blue hostas. This one here is called Halcyon. It's going to get about 12, maybe 16 inches tall, about 24 to 30 inches wide. It keeps a really nice powdery blue color. One of the interesting things about the blue color on hostas and on many plants is that the blue color, it's not actually the leaf itself, but it's a powder, what we call a glaucous powder that kind of forms on the leaf. And so if I show you, this kind of has more of a blue color, but if I rub that, you can kind of see how it goes green right there. As the summer goes on, this will produce more and more of that glaucous powder, and it'll become more blue and more blue. It will never be bright, electric blue. The reason I mention that is, unfortunately, there are a lot of AI-generated photos going around. We have, on Amazon, you can now buy, you cannot actually, but they're selling them on Amazon. You can buy purple and pink hostas. You can find the ones that are bright electric blue and some that have white and pink and purple and red and green, all these different colors. It's just kind of crazy. It's really getting out of hand, but they're selling seeds for these. These are completely made up. There is no such thing. They do sell them on the internet. I see them on Facebook and Instagram all the time and on Amazon. So please don't fall for that. There is no such thing as that. There's also no pink or blue pampas grass either, which we commonly get asked about. All right, let's keep rolling here. This is one of my absolute favorites. This is a fairly large hosta. It is called Stained Glass. Stained Glass is going to get somewhere in the 15, maybe 20 inches tall by 30 inches wide or so. The name stained glass refers to the way that the coloring on the leaf almost looks like the different colors of a stained glass window. It's a really pretty color variegation, very bright yellowy green down the center, which will get a little more yellow as the summer goes on or in a little more sun. This is for sure one of the more sun tolerant hostas. Again, I want to clarify that I don't want to see you put this in bright sunlight, but definitely can tolerate a little bit more sunlight. One of the reasons why I said this is one of my favorites, this is going to develop a nice pale purple flower scape in the midsummer. It is very, very fragrant. I really like stained glass hosta. In fact, some of my Hosta flowers or scapes I'll actually cut off because I don't find them all that attractive. Stained glass is such a pretty flower. I oftentimes will cut the scapes and bring them in and put them in a vase, and the fragrance is fantastic. So I really like stained glass a lot. Again, not all of them are as pretty, but this is a really nice one. Most of the hostas that I've showed so far have a really nice kind of moundy habit, whether it was one of the dwarf ones or one of the larger ones, they have a more moundy habit. We have a handful of hostas that have a more vase shape or sort of fluted shape to them, where they're kind of narrow at the base and wider up at the top. And this is one of them. This is a blue sort of vase-shaped hosta called Crosa Regal. I really like this one a lot. It's another one that as the summer goes on, you're going to get more blue color. It is one of our larger hostas. It can get 36 inches tall. It can get 36 plus inches wide, maybe 30 inches wide. So it's got that really nice upright profile. And you can kind of, you know, when I put these two together, you can sort of see the difference in the shape there, where one, the leaves are pointing basically upward, the other, they're kind of hanging downward. This one is going to be a much more moundy plant. This one is going to be a much more upright plant. So if you're looking for bright color, this is one of my favorites. This leaf, this hosta has a leaf that typically has more cream or yellow on it than it does green. So it is really, really bright. This one is called Autumn Frost. It's another one that comes from the Proven Winners Shadowland collection. And this particular hosta is only going to get about 12, maybe 14 inches tall, but it's going to get about 24 inches wide. So it's going to make this really nice big clump. These leaves are going to get about 50% larger than what you see here. This is still a young hosta. It typically takes a hosta about 3 to 4 years to fully mature. So this is only a 2-year-old plant right now, but it's going to take another 2 to 3 years, maybe even 4 years for this to fully mature into its full size of 12 by 24 or 36. So really, really bright hosta. If you've got a shady spot and you're looking to brighten that up, I think Autumn Frost is one of the best for that. While we're talking about bright hostas, I brought this one up. This is another really bright variety. This one is called Designer Jeans, and it has this really bright yellow chartreusey green color to it, but it also has these really cool red petioles. Petiole is basically another word for a leaf stem, and you can kind of see it almost looks like rhubarb down here with this bright red coloring, and it's kind of speckled as it goes up the leaf stem here, up the petiole. So really cool coloring. The two-tone nature of it with that chartreusey yellowy green color and that really nice vibrant red color, again, just offers a texture and a color that you just don't normally have in a shady location. So I really like Designer Jeans a lot. This one's going to get about 16 to 18 inches tall and is going to get about 24-ish inches wide. It's not a huge hosta. Again, great border plant, kind of, you know, foreground type plant. I love to use hostas in the front with, say, something like some of your more shade tolerant hydrangeas behind, like some of the smooth hydrangeas that can tolerate a good deal of shade. Those are going to look really nice in the background. These are going to look really nice in the foreground. You could use boxwood or hues as a really nice backdrop. They're going to have that fine textured leaf. The hostas with their big leaf are going to offer a really nice texture in the front. This particular hosta is one that I added to my garden in 2020 and was one of my absolute favorites and still is. This has really, I guess exaggerated undulation to the leaf, that ruffled edge. And it goes, the ruffled, I don't know how well we can show this, but it actually goes all the way down the petiole. You know, that ruffle just keeps on going all the way down the petiole, which just gives it a really wavy kind of texture. You kind of maybe show you on this one here how it just kind of keeps going all the way down. And it just gives it a really unique texture in the garden. This is called WiiW, W-H-E-E. It's also part of the Shadowland collection. Very small hosta, only about 6 or 8 inches, maybe 10 inches by about 18 inches. So pretty small hosta, but really neat for the texture. I actually have this at home with a couple of coral bells next to it, which have a larger kind of maple-shaped leaf, burgundy in color, and they play off of each other really nicely, and I really like that look. These also look great in mass, so mass plantings of these are going to look really nice. We already talked about autumn frost. We'll keep going here. This is another smaller hosta. This one's called Maui Buttercups. Maui Buttercups is a more sun-loving, or is one of the hostas that can tolerate a little bit more sun, I should say, not necessarily sun-loving. Chartreuse, puckered, cupped leaves. Kind of hard to see because this is still pretty young, but these leaves are going to get really nice cups. The leaf is pretty thick, kind of a little more robust hosta, and this is going to have a white flower scape, or a scape with a white flower on it. Really nice little hosta, 8 to 10 inches tall, maybe 20-ish inches wide, but with that really nice kind of almost like a green apple type color, which is really nice. This is relatively small right now, but this is a really nice little hosta. This is brand new for us. We actually just started growing this last year. This is called Rough Lemon Hosta. It's going to get about 14 inches tall by about 28 inches wide and is going to have a lavender flower to it. But it has this beautiful, again, kind of sort of candy apple green or apple green color to it with this really nice red petiole again, but it's a lot darker, more burgundy, almost wine color than the designer jeans that I showed you before. So medium-sized hosta, great color, not something you see very often with that with the bright red petiole and the kind of red veining on the backside there, which makes it a really cool plant. So that one's called Rough Lemon. This one here is called Guacamole, and Guacamole and Stained Glass are closely related. Guacamole has a similar coloring to it. It's not quite as yellow as Stained Glass, and the interior green color looks more avocado green, thus the name Guacamole. This one has a wonderfully fragrant white flower. Could be very, very, very pale purple, but beautiful flower. This is another one that's great for cutting, has a wonderful fragrance to it. I really like Guacamole a lot. It is a fairly large hosta. It's going to get in the 22 to 24 inch tall range, probably about the same wide. So it's a little more upright. If I kind of show you, again, there's a little difference in age here, but this is Guacamole. You can see a little more upright. This is Stained Glass, a little more wide and kind of moundy in habit, but both of them are wonderful additions to the garden. These are going to hold up really, really well in the landscape. All right, this is a really nice variety that's also new to the market in the last couple of years. It's called Etched Glass, and it kind of plays along the lines of the Stained Glass, or there's another variety that I did not bring up here called Cathedral Windows. And the goal with these particular hostas was to get this really deep definition between the colors, where it doesn't just kind of blend into another one. There's these kind of sharper lines of yellow with green and things like that, giving it more of that etched glass, stained glass type look. So I really like Etched Glass a lot. About 16, 18 inches tall, about 36 inches wide, very nice low mound. This one's going to have a white flower, not much for fragrance, but a nice looking flower. It also is one that is a little bit more sun tolerant. Again, not going to be great for hot, sunny locations, but it's going to hold up pretty well. Diamond Lake, another great introduction. Really, really nice powdery blue color. The later you get into summer, the more bright blue this foliage is going to get. Little bit of undulation to the leaf, very large leaf, which I really like a lot. Lavender flower escapes. This is a bigger hosta. Diamond Lake is going to get about 24 to 30 inches tall. It's going to get about 48 inches wide. So really nice wide hosta. This is going to take up a lot of space in the garden, which is great. One of the things I love about hostas, they really do a wonderful job of outcompeting weeds. So I very rarely have to pull weeds in and around my hostas because they are low and moundy to the ground. They do a great job of preventing seeds from germinating, or even from preventing the seed from getting there, because they kind of cast everything off of their foliage. So I really like hostas for their kind of low maintenance aspect, where they just you don't have to do much of anything to them. So I like Diamond Lake, and that's going to take up a ton of space. So very cool one. The older it gets, the bigger and more ruffled the leaves get, and they'll get just a little bit of a two-tone. You might see a little green in the middle with blue on the outside. Really cool coloring on that one. This is a little older variety, but still one of my favorites. As you can see, it's a very large hosta. This is called Francis Williams. Francis Williams has been around for quite some time. We carried this when I first started in the business. It was one of the only hostas we carried. We probably had maybe 3 or 5 varieties back then. Now we have, I don't know, 40 or more varieties. But Francis Williams is a quite large hosta, about 24 inches tall, about 48 inches wide. It has a white flower, not particularly attractive flower, and not particularly fragrant, but the plant itself is huge. It's got that really nice yellowy green outside with the darker green inside. It's got a really thick, kind of not ruffled edge, but like thick, almost corrugated type leaf. You kind of I'm looking at the back of the leaf here, and it almost looks like cardboard on the back. If you look at the side of a piece of cardboard with that sort of corrugation to it. Really a very cool plant. One of the other neat things about some of these big, thick-leafed hostas is the way that water beads up on the leaves. Water will oftentimes collect and pool on the leaves of some of these larger hostas, which is really cool because you'll oftentimes see birds, wasps, dragonflies sipping from the water that collects on the leaves of these during the summer rainstorms, which is kind of cool. So I really like Francis Williams a lot. Again, it's been around a long time. I think it was like the Hosta of the Year back in, I think, 1993 or something, and has been a mainstay here at Wasco. And last but certainly not least is probably one of our best-selling hostas. This is called Patriot. Patriot is a sport of an older variety called Francis. And earlier in my talk, I had mentioned the kind of fairly boring green and white variegated hostas. And one of those is called Francis, another one's called Albo Marginata. Albo Marginata had a very thin white edge to its leaf, and kind of a fairly plain green center with a thin white margin around the outside. I maybe should have grabbed a leaf off of one if I could find one in the landscape somewhere. But that's one that you'll commonly see on old properties where people just kind of lined the trees, lined the woods, etc. Well, Patriot, as I mentioned, is a sport of one of those varieties called Francis, and it is known for its very thick white margins. So the margin on the leaf, on these hostas, sometimes half-ish or a third of the leaf might be white. Later on, as the summer progresses, as they get a little more sunlight, you might even see 50% of the leaf being white. So it's I think probably one of the most white-leafed hostas on the market. It has a nice thick textured leaf. It tends to be more sun tolerant than most hostas. It tends to be slug resistant. Slugs are something that will crawl up the leaf stems of hostas and oftentimes eat holes in the leaves. Some of the more robust, thicker leafed hostas are slug resistant. and generally the slugs don't really like to munch on them. If you are having a problem with slugs at home, there are some organic slug baits that you can sprinkle around. Most of them are made out of an iron phosphate product, kind of a granular, thick granular product that you can sprinkle around the base of the hostas. And I don't know exactly what it does to the slugs. I mean, it does kill them, but as they're kind of traveling across the ground, they get that iron phosphate on them, and I think it causes them to kind of burn up or dry up. And the earlier you do that, the earlier you put down a slug bait, the better off you're going to be. Slugs will multiply throughout the season. So if you just let them run rampant, oftentimes by the end of the year, your hostas have holes in the leaves, lots of holes, because the slugs have munched them all to bits. But the earlier you put down that slug bait, the better off you're going to be. So, as I mentioned, we carry more than, I think, 40 different varieties of hosta, and we might even be north of 50 at this point. But there are, as I mentioned, 3,000 plus cultivars on the market, so there's a lot to choose from. But there's some really, really cool varieties. We're always trying new varieties and sort of checking out, is this one any different from this other variety that used to be on the market, or something like that? Does it perform any better? Is the variegation different than others? But we've got a lot to choose from. They're not all boring. They're not all plain green anymore. And as I mentioned, they're a great landscape addition because they grow in places where very little will grow. They require very little maintenance. The only thing you need to do to these is cut them down to the ground in the late fall or early winter time, and get rid of the leaves at that point. A light layer of mulch over the winter is recommended, and aside from that, they need very little care. Hostas can be divided. So hostas are something that can be divided almost all season long, which is not true of most perennials. A lot of perennials, you're either going to want to divide them earlier in the spring or later in the late summer, early fall. But hostas you can literally divide anytime. So if you've got a mature hosta clump, if you've got a clump like this, you can dig the whole clump up and you can take a spade and cut that into quarters. You typically want at least 3 eyes on a plant. I'll show you on this Francis Williams. An eye is basically a set of stems. So you can kind of see on this one if we count these out, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 right here. So this hosta has 5 eyes. You normally want to keep 3 eyes, a minimum of 3 eyes per division. So if you're dividing a very large hosta clump, if it's got 15 eyes to it, you might be able to get 5 chunks out of that. Maybe 3 or 4 for sure. You can put 1 back in the ground where you were planting or where you had it before, put some fresh loose fill around it, and then take the other 3 or 4 and go plant them somewhere else in the yard, or give them to a friend or neighbor, and now everybody's got hostas. So again, not your grandma's hosta. Love some of the new varieties, really easy to grow. So hopefully that helps you add something to one of those more difficult spots that you have in the yard. So as always, I love being with you on a Saturday morning, and hope that you get a chance to get outside this weekend.